Chapter 1. The Invitation to Hartford House. In the heart of London, where the fog clung to the cobblestones like a conspirator's whisper, Hercule Poirot sat in his impeccably ordered flat at Whitehaven Mansions. The morning of October 12th, 1932, was crisp, and the fire in the grate cast a warm glow across the room, illuminating the detective's meticulously polished shoes and the silver tray bearing his tisane. His friend, Captain Arthur Hastings, lounged in an armchair, flipping through the Times with a half-hearted air. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice as precise as the ticking of the ormolu clock on the mantel, "you are restless. Is it the news, or is it that you find my company insufficiently diverting?" Hastings chuckled, folding the newspaper. "Not at all, Poirot. It's just, well, things have been rather quiet since that business with the Egyptian necklace. I was hoping for a bit of excitement." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of amusement or perhaps anticipation. "Patience, Hastings. The little grey cells, they do not require constant stimulation. But I confess, I too await a challenge worthy of Hercule Poirot." As if summoned by fate, a sharp rap at the door interrupted their exchange. Poirot's valet, George, entered with a silver salver bearing a single envelope, its cream vellum embossed with a crest that gleamed under the lamplight. "For you, sir," George said, presenting it with a bow. Poirot's green eyes gleamed as he took the envelope, noting its weight and the elegance of the calligraphy. "Merci, Georges. Let us see what mystery arrives unbidden." He slit the envelope with a letter opener, revealing a card of heavy stock, its words penned in ink as black as midnight. "Monsieur Hercule Poirot, your presence is requested at a private viewing of the Wallace collection at Hartford House, Manchester Square, on the evening of October 13th, 1932, at 8 o'clock. A matter of great delicacy awaits your discernment. Discretion is paramount. Yours sincerely, a friend of the collection." Hastings leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "No signature. That's rather cloak and dagger, don't you think?" Poirot's fingers traced the embossed crest, a lion rampant entwined with a laurel wreath. "Oui, Hastings, it is most intriguing. The Wallace collection. It is a treasure trove of art and antiquities, gathered by the Marquises of Hartford and Sir Richard Wallace. Such a place does not invite lightly. And this friend of the collection, why conceal their identity? The little grey cells, they stir. Are you going to accept?" Hastings asked, his voice tinged with excitement. Poirot smiled, a glint of determination in his eyes. "To decline would be to deny the call of destiny, mon ami. The Wallace collection is not merely a museum. It is a labyrinth of secrets, each painting and objet d'art a potential clue. I shall attend this viewing, and I shall uncover what this friend wishes me to see, or perhaps what they wish me not to see." The following evening, Poirot stepped from a taxi into the chill of Manchester Square. His evening attire was impeccable. A tailored black suit, a pristine white shirt, and a silk tie pinned with a pearl. His patent leather shoes gleamed, and his moustache was waxed to perfection. The fog had thickened, wrapping Hartford House in a ghostly veil, its Palladian facade looming like a sentinel of secrets. A liveried footman greeted him at the door, his face as impassive as the marble busts within. "Monsieur Poirot, this way, if you please." The grand hall of Hartford House opened before him, its walls adorned with tapestries and its air heavy with the scent of polished wood and old wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow, illuminating a small group of guests gathered near a display of Sèvres porcelain. Poirot's eyes scanned the assembly. a silver-haired gentleman in a velvet smoking jacket, a young woman in a sapphire gown whose diamonds glittered like stars, a nervous-looking man in spectacles clutching a notebook, and a tall figure in a military-style coat who stood apart, his gaze fixed on a portrait of a stern-faced nobleman. The footman announced Monsieur Hercule Poirot, and all eyes turned to him. The silver-haired gentleman approached, extending a hand. "Mr. Poirot, I am Sir Reginald Blake, trustee of the Wallace collection. We are honored by your presence." Poirot bowed slightly, his gaze never leaving Sir Reginald's face. "The honor is mine, Sir Reginald, but I confess I am curious. This invitation, it speaks of delicacy, yet it hides its author. What is the purpose of this gathering?" Sir Reginald's smile was tight, his eyes darting to the other guests. "All in good time, monsieur. Tonight is a celebration of art, but also an opportunity. You will understand soon enough." As Poirot mingled, his little grey cells hummed. The young woman, introduced as Lady Evelyn Wallace, a distant relation of the collection's founder, spoke with a cultured drawl, but avoided his questions. The spectacled man, Mr. Clarence Withers, was the curator, his hands trembling as he described a rare miniature portrait by Jean-Etienne Léotard. The tall man, Colonel Market Straighton, offered only curt nods, his attention fixed on the gallery's shadows. Poirot paused before a display case, his reflection mingling with the gleam of a gilded frame. "Quel mystère!" he murmured. "A gathering of strangers, an anonymous invitation, and the air, it is thick with secrets. Hercule Poirot shall uncover them all." As the clock struck 8, a faint clatter echoed from the upper gallery, followed by a stifled gasp. The game, it seemed, had begun. "Hey, detective, quick question. Where in the world are you solving mysteries from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you want more twisted tales, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's case, it gets even. Creepier. Stay sharp." Chapter 2. The Gilded Gallery. The grand gallery of Hartford House shimmered under the chandelier's light, its walls a tapestry of masterpieces, Watteau's delicate pastorals, Fragonard's vibrant rococo, and the stern gazes of Reynolds's portraits. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his small, fastidious figure a stark contrast to the opulence around him. His green eyes darted from guest to guest, cataloguing every gesture, every glance, as if the room itself were a puzzle to be solved. The air was thick with the scent of beeswax polish, and the faint tang of anticipation. Sir Reginald Blake, the silver-haired trustee, clapped his hands, drawing the small assembly's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice smooth but edged with a tremor, "tonight we celebrate the Wallace collection's enduring legacy. But we also unveil a treasure rarely seen, a miniature portrait by Jean-Etienne Léotard, a jewel of the 18th century, recently rediscovered in our vaults." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Un portrait miniature," he murmured to himself. "Très intéressant. Such treasures, they are not merely art, they are secrets in paint and gold." The guests gathered around a velvet-draped pedestal, where Mr. Clarence Withers, the curator, stood nervously adjusting his spectacles. His hands, Poirot noted, trembled as he lifted a small, ornate case from the pedestal. "This," Withers said, his voice cracking, "is the Lady in Blue, a Léotard masterpiece. Its sapphire frame alone is worth a fortune, but the portrait, it captures a mystery we have yet to unravel." The case opened to reveal a delicate miniature, no larger than a locket, depicting a woman in a blue gown, her eyes hauntingly lifelike. The frame, encrusted with tiny sapphires, gleamed like a constellation. Lady Evelyn Wallace, the heiress in the sapphire gown, gasped softly, her gloved hand brushing her diamond necklace. "Exquisite," she whispered, though her eyes lingered not on the portrait but on Withers's trembling hands. Colonel Marcus Drayton, the tall, taciturn man in the military coat, stood at the edge of the group, his face a mask of indifference. Yet Poirot caught the flicker of his gaze toward the miniature, a look not of admiration, but of calculation. The final guest, a portly art collector named Mr. Percival Hammond, mopped his brow with a silk handkerchief. "A fine piece," Hammond boomed, his voice too loud for the hushed gallery. "Worth a king's ransom, I'd wager. Dangerous to display it, Blake, don't you think?" Sir Reginald's smile was strained. "The Wallace collection is secure, Mr. Hammond. Our precautions are impeccable." Poirot stepped closer to the pedestal, his head tilted as he studied the miniature. "Pardonnez-moi, Monsieur Withers," he said, his voice soft but piercing, "but this portrait, it has a history, no? A painting so small, yet it commands such attention. Was it hidden in the vaults until now?" Withers paled, his fingers fumbling with the case. It was catalogued incorrectly, Monsieur Poirot. A clerical error, nothing more. We only recently realized its value." Poirot's eyes narrowed, though his smile remained polite. "A clerical error, you say? Mon Dieu, how fortunate that such a treasure was found in time for this private viewing." His tone suggested he believed no such thing. Lady Evelyn interjected, her voice like velvet over steel. "Monsieur Poirot, surely you don't suspect foul play already? We're here to admire art, not to play detective." Her smile was dazzling, but Poirot noted the tightness at its edges, the way her fingers clutched her evening bag. "Mademoiselle," Poirot replied, bowing slightly, "Hercule Poirot is always a detective, even among such beauty. The little grey cells, they do not rest." Colonel Drayton snorted, breaking his silence. "A detective's fancy, nothing more. This is a museum, not a crime scene." His words were clipped, his posture rigid, as if he were addressing a subordinate on a battlefield. Hammond laughed, a jovial sound that grated in the tense air. "Oh, let the man have his fun, Colonel. A bit of mystery adds spice to the evening, eh?" Sir Reginald cleared his throat, eager to redirect the conversation. "Shall we proceed to the next gallery? There's a fine Bouchardon sculpture I'd like you to see." As the group moved, Poirot lingered by the pedestal, his gaze fixed on the miniature. He noted the case's lock, a delicate mechanism, easily picked by skilled hands. He also observed the gallery's layout, the high windows, the shadowed alcoves, the single staircase leading to the upper floors. "Un terrain parfait pour le crime," he murmured. A moment later, Lady Evelyn approached, her sapphire gown rustling softly. "You're a curious man, Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low. "What do you see in that little painting that fascinates you so?" Poirot turned, his eyes meeting hers. "I see what is there, mademoiselle, and what is not. The painting, it speaks of beauty, yes, but also of secrets, and secrets, they are the lifeblood of mystery." Her lips parted, as if to respond, but a sudden commotion interrupted them. From the upper gallery came a sharp cry, followed by the clatter of metal. Withers spun around, his face ashen. "The case!" he gasped, rushing to the pedestal. The miniature was gone. Chapter 3. The Vanishing Miniature. The Grand Gallery of Hartford House, moments ago a stage for cultured admiration, now thrummed with chaos. The empty pedestal where the lady in blue had rested stood like an accusation, its velvet cloth askew. Mr. Clarence Withers, the curator, stood frozen, his spectacles slipping down his nose as he stared at the vacant case. "Gone!" he stammered, his voice rising to a wail. "The miniature! It's gone. Hercule Poirot, his small frame a beacon of calm amidst the storm, raised a hand. "Calmez-vous, mes amis," he said, his voice steady but commanding. "Panic, it obscures the truth. Let us proceed with order and method." His green eyes swept the room, noting every detail. The guests' faces, the flickering chandelier, the faint draught from an unseen window. Sir Reginald Blake, the trustee, was the first to recover his composure, though his knuckles whitened as he gripped his cane. "This is outrageous," he barked. "The Wallace collection is impregnable." "Who could have—" "Impregnable, you say?" interrupted Mr. Percival Hammond, the portly art collector, his face flushed with indignation. "Then how, sir, does a priceless miniature vanish under our noses? I demand an explanation." Lady Evelyn Wallace, her sapphire gown catching the light, stepped forward, her expression a mask of concern. "Surely, Sir Reginald, the staff must be questioned. A servant, perhaps, or a lapse in security." Her tone was measured, but Poirot caught the flicker of her eyes toward Colonel Marcus Drayton, who stood apart, his military bearing unshaken. Drayton's voice cut through the din, cold and precise. Blake cut through the din, cold and precise. "Blaming servants is lazy thinking. The thief is among us, mark my words." His gaze lingered on Hammond, who bristled but said nothing. Poirot clapped his hands sharply, silencing the group. "Messieurs, mademoiselle," he said, "accusations without evidence. They are like arrows shot in the dark. Hercule Poirot will find this thief, but I require your cooperation. No one leaves this gallery until I have examined the scene." Withers, still trembling, nodded vigorously. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. Anything you need. The miniature, it's irreplaceable. Its loss would be catastrophic." Poirot approached the pedestal, his movements deliberate. The case's lock was intact, showing no signs of tampering. He bent low, his moustache twitching as he inspected the velvet cloth. A single thread, gold and gossamer fine, clung to the edge, out of place in the pristine setting. He plucked it with a handkerchief and tucked it into his pocket, his expression unreadable. "Intéressant," he murmured. "The thief, he is clever, but not invisible. Tell me, Monsieur Withers, who handled this case before the viewing?" Withers blinked rapidly. "Only myself and the head conservator, Miss Langley. She prepared the miniature this afternoon. It was secure until moments ago." "And where is this Miss Langley now?" Poirot asked, his tone mild but probing. She left early unwell," Withers stammered. "But she's beyond reproach, I assure you." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Bien sûr. No one is beyond reproach until the little grey cells have spoken." He turned to the group. "Now, each of you recount your movements since we entered this gallery. Precision, s'il vous plaît." Sir Reginald spoke first, his voice clipped. "I was admiring the Fragonard in the west alcove when the cry sounded. I saw nothing unusual." Lady Evelyn tilted her head, her diamonds glinting. "I was near the pedestal, speaking with you, Monsieur Poirot. Then I stepped away to view the Watteau. I heard the clatter and returned to find the case empty." Hammond mopped his brow again. "I was by the porcelain display, discussing Sèvres with Colonel Drayton. Didn't see a blasted thing until Withers shouted." Drayton's eyes narrowed. "As Hammond said, I was with him. The gallery's too crowded for anyone to slip away unnoticed." Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. "Vraiment. Yet the miniature, it has slipped away. Most curious." He paced slowly, his polished shoes silent on the parquet floor. "And the cry we heard, whose voice was it?" The guests exchanged uneasy glances. No one spoke. Poirot's gaze settled on a shattered corner near the staircase, where a faint scuff mark marred the polished wood. He knelt, examining it closely. "Aha, he said softly. "The floor, it tells a story. A hurried step, perhaps, in shoes not meant for stealth." Sir Reginald frowned. "Monsieur Poirot, surely you don't suspect one of us? We're all reputable. Reputable we," Poirot interrupted, his voice sharp. "But reputation, it is a mask, and masks they can hide the truth. Someone in this room knows more than they say, and Hercule Poirot will discover what it is." As the guests shifted uncomfortably, a distant clock chimed 9. The fog outside pressed against the windows, and the gallery seemed to close in around them. Poirot's eyes gleamed with purpose. The hunt was on. Chapter 4. The Curator's Confession. The grand gallery of Hartford House was silent, save for the faint creak of the parquet floor and the distant tick of a clock. The guests stood in a tense semicircle, their faces illuminated by the chandelier's golden glow, each expression a study in unease. Hercule Poirot, his small figure commanding the room, fixed his piercing gaze on Mr. Clarence Withers, the curator, whose pallor rivaled the marble busts lining the walls. "Monsieur Withers," Poirot said, his voice soft but unyielding, "the miniature, the lady in blue, it is not merely a work of art, no? It carries a history, a weight that makes its theft no ordinary crime. You spoke of a clerical error in its rediscovery. I think perhaps there is more you have not said." Withers adjusted his spectacles, his hands trembling so violently that they knocked against the empty pedestal. I've told you all I know, Monsieur Poirot," he stammered. "The miniature was misplaced in the vaults, that's all. A simple oversight." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of skepticism. "Simple? Mon ami, a treasure such as this does not vanish into obscurity by accident, nor does it reappear by chance. Speak plainly. What is the story of this lady in blue?" The curator glanced nervously at Sir Reginald Blake, who gave a curt nod, as if granting permission. Withers swallowed, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Very well. The miniature, it's tied to a scandal, one the Wallace family has long sought to bury. It was painted by Jean-Etienne Lyotard in 1762 for Lady Charlotte Wallace, an ancestor of the collection's founders. She was entangled in a liaison with a French diplomat, a man suspected of espionage during the 7 Years' War. The portrait was a gift, but it was also a cipher, a coded message, some say, hidden in the brushstrokes or the frame's design." Lady Evelyn Wallace, standing nearby, stiffened, her sapphire gown rustling faintly. "A cipher?" she said, her tone sharp. "That's absurd, Mr. Withers. My family's history is well documented. This sounds like a fanciful tale to inflate the painting's value." Poirot turned to her, his eyes gleaming. "Mademoiselle, history, it is often a tapestry woven with threads of truth and deception. A cipher in a painting is not so fanciful when one considers the stakes of war and love." He returned to Withers. "Continue, s'il vous plaît. Why was this miniature hidden?" Withers mopped his brow with a handkerchief. "After Lady Charlotte's death, the portrait was deemed compromising. It was locked away in the vaults by the 3rd Marquis of Hartford. When I found it last month, during an inventory, I informed Sir Reginald. We hoped it could be displayed without reviving old rumours. Clearly, we were mistaken." Sir Reginald interjected, his voice tight. "The decision to display it was mine, Monsieur Poirot. I believed the scandal long forgotten. Its value, both artistic and historical, warranted the risk." "Vraiment?" Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. "Yet someone saw this display as an opportunity, not for admiration, but for theft. Tell me, Monsieur Withers, who else knew of the miniature's rediscovery?" "Only the senior staff," Withers replied. "Miss Langley, the conservator, and Mr. Thompson, our archivist. and of course Sir Reginald and the Board of Trustees. Poirot's fingers steepled, his mind racing. Et voila! A small circle, yet large enough for betrayal. And this Miss Langley, who left early tonight, she handled the miniature. Did she speak of its history? Withers hesitated, his eyes darting to the floor. She was fascinated by it. Said the sapphires in the frame were unusual, possibly of Persian origin. But she's devoted to the collection, Monsieur Poirot. She'd never steal. Colonel Marcus Drayton, silent until now, snorted derisively. Devotion doesn't preclude greed, Withers, or perhaps she's not as ill as you claim. Mr. Percival Hammond, the art collector, chuckled nervously. Now, Colonel, let's not jump to conclusions. Though I must say, Persian sapphires would fetch a tidy sum on the black market. Poirot ignored the exchange, his attention fixed on Withers. You say the frame is unusual. Did Miss Langley examine it closely? Yes, Withers admitted. She spent hours studying it under a magnifying glass. Said there were irregularities in the setting, as if it had been altered long ago. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Irregularities, most interesting. And where is this Miss Langley now? Her absence, it is convenient, no? Sir Reginald stepped forward, his cane tapping the floor. Monsieur Poirot, Miss Langley is a trusted employee. She reported ill this afternoon and was excused. I'll have her contacted at once. Bien, Poirot said. But first, I must see the vaults where this miniature was kept. The past, it leaves traces, and traces lead to truth. As Sir Reginald led the way to a discreet door behind a tapestry, Poirot lingered, his gaze sweeping the guests. Lady Evelyn's fingers clutched her evening bag too tightly. Drayton's posture was too rigid. Hammond's joviality seemed forced, and Withers's nervous glances betrayed more than fear. The gold thread in Poirot's pocket felt heavier, a silent clue to a crime that was anything but simple. The door to the vaults creaked open, revealing a shadowed staircase. Poirot adjusted his tie, his little grey cells alight. Allons-y, he murmured. The truth, it waits below. Chapter 5. Shadows of the Past. The vaults beneath Hartford House were a labyrinth of stone and shadow, their air cool and heavy with the scent of aged vellum and dust. Hercule Poirot descended the narrow staircase, his polished shoes clicking softly, followed by Sir Reginald Blake and the still trembling Mr. Clarence Withers. The other guests, Lady Evelyn Wallace, Colonel Marcus Drayton, and Mr. Percival Hammond, remained in the grand gallery above, under the watchful eye of a footman. Poirot's mind, however, was not on the vault's gloom, but on the threads of history that seemed to weave through the theft of the lady in blue. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, pausing to inspect a row of archival boxes stacked against the damp wall. This place, it is a tomb for secrets, and secrets, they do not rest quietly. Sir Reginald, his cane tapping rhythmically, gestured toward a heavy oak door. The miniature was stored here, Monsieur Poirot, in a locked cabinet. Only Withers and Miss Langley had access. Withers fumbled with a ring of keys, his hands unsteady, as he opened the door to reveal a small chamber lined with metal cabinets. It was in cabinet 3, he said, pointing to a drawer with a gleaming brass lock. I checked it myself this morning. Poirot examined the lock, noting its pristine condition. No scratches, no signs of force. Curieux, he said, a thief who picks locks with the skill of a surgeon, or perhaps one who needed no picking at all. He turned to Withers. You spoke of a scandal involving Lady Charlotte Wallace. Tell me more, s'il vous plaît. Who was this French diplomat, and why does his shadow linger? Withers hesitated, glancing at Sir Reginald, who nodded curtly. His name was Philip de Varenne, Withers began, his voice low. a minor diplomat in the 1760s, suspected of passing British secrets to the French during the 7 Years' War. Lady Charlotte, a young widow, was infatuated with him. Rumours swirled that she hid messages in her possessions, perhaps even in the miniature itself. When de Varenne was exposed and fled to France, Charlotte was disgraced. The Wallace family suppressed the story, and the miniature was locked away. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Aha! A painting that is both art and evidence. And you, Sir Reginald, you chose to display it, knowing this history. Sir Reginald's jaw tightened. The scandal is ancient history, Monsieur Poirot. I saw no reason to let it dictate our stewardship of the collection. Vraiment, Poirot said, his tone laced with skepticism. Yet someone saw reason to steal it. Let us return to our companions. Their pasts, I think, may hold answers. Back in the Grand Gallery, the guests stood in uneasy silence, their faces lit by the flickering chandelier. Poirot clapped his hands, drawing their attention. Mes amis, he said, the theft of the miniature is no random act. It is tied to a scandal of old, to Lady Charlotte Wallace and her French lover. I wonder, do any of you have connections to this history? Lady Evelyn's laugh was sharp, almost brittle. Monsieur Poirot, you can't seriously think my family's ancient gossip has anything to do with this. I'm a Wallace by marriage, not blood, and my late husband's ancestors are hardly my concern. Poirot tilted his head, studying her. Mademoiselle, the past it clings like dust to the present. And you, Colonel Drayton, your family perhaps, has ties to the military intrigues of the 18th century. Drayton's eyes narrowed, his posture rigid. My family served king and country, Poirot. No more, no less. I deal in facts, not fairy tales about spies. Mr. Percival Hammond chuckled, though his eyes were wary. Come now, Poirot, you're spinning yarns. I'm just a collector, here for the art. My only scandal is overpaying for a Gainsborough last year. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Bien sûr. Yet the little grey cells, they whisper that one of you knows more than you admit. He produced the gold thread from his pocket, holding it up to the light. This I found near the pedestal. It is not from the velvet, nor from any garment I see here. A clue, perhaps, from someone who moved swiftly in the shadows. Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened on her evening bag. A fleeting gesture Poirot noted. Drayton's gaze flickered to the staircase, while Hammond's jovial mask slipped, revealing a flash of unease. Withers, meanwhile, seemed on the verge of collapse, his handkerchief now a crumpled rag. Monsieur Withers, Poirot continued, you mentioned Miss Langley's interest in the framed sapphires. Did she share her findings with anyone else? No, Withers said quickly, too quickly. She kept her notes private, said she'd report to the board once her analysis was complete. Poirot nodded slowly. D'accord. Then we must speak with Miss Langley at once. Her illness. It is most convenient for a thief, no? Sir Reginald bristled. I'll have her summoned, but I assure you she's no criminal. Perhaps, Poirot said, his voice soft but unyielding. But the truth, it hides in the details, and Hercule Poirot will find it. As a footman was dispatched to fetch Miss Langley, Poirot's gaze lingered on the empty pedestal. The scandal of Lady Charlotte, the mysterious de Varenne, the gold thread, all were pieces of a puzzle that grew more intricate by the moment. Above, the portraits of the Wallace ancestors seemed to watch, their painted eyes holding secrets of their own. Chapter 6. The Cryptic Cipher. The Grand Gallery of Hartford House seemed to hold its breath as Hercule Poirot paced before the empty pedestal, his polished shoes silent on the parquet floor. The guests, Lady Evelyn Wallace, Colonel Marcus Drayton, Mr. Percival Hammond, and the trembling curator, Mr. Clarence Withers, watched him with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Sir Reginald Blake had just returned from dispatching a footman to summon Miss Langley, the absent conservator, when a faint rustle drew Poirot's attention to the base of a nearby display case. "Qu'est-ce que c'est?" Poirot murmured, bending low with the grace of a cat. His fingers, deft and precise, retrieved a small crumpled slip of paper from beneath the case, half hidden by a fold of velvet curtain. He smoothed it carefully, revealing a series of numbers and symbols scrawled in hurried ink. *3-7-12/LVR/****. "Mon Dieu," Poirot said, his green eyes gleaming. "A cipher, left in haste. The thief, perhaps, was not so careful as he thought." Lady Evelyn stepped closer, her sapphire gown catching the chandelier's light. "A cipher?" she said, her voice tinged with skepticism. "It looks like nonsense, Monsieur Poirot. A child's scribble, nothing more." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Mademoiselle, to the untrained eye, a masterpiece is merely paint on canvas. To Hercule Poirot, this is a message, a key, perhaps, to the theft of the lady in blue." He held the paper to the light, noting the faint watermark of a lion rampant, matching the crest on his invitation. Colonel Drayton's voice was sharp. "If it's a code, it's likely a distraction. The thief's long gone by now, Poirot." "Vraiment?" Poirot replied, his tone deceptively mild. "Yet this paper, it was dropped after the theft, in a place where only someone familiar with this gallery would linger. I wonder, Colonel, do you recognize these symbols?" Drayton's jaw tightened, but he shook his head. "I'm a soldier, not a cryptographer." Mr. Hammond, mopping his brow with his ever-present handkerchief, chuckled nervously. "Looks like a betting slip to me. Perhaps the thief's a gambler, eh?" Poirot ignored the jest, his mind racing. "Monsieur Withers," he said, turning to the curator, "this sequence, 3712, does it correspond to anything in the collection? A catalogue number, perhaps, or a reference to the vaults?" Withers adjusted his spectacles, his hands trembling less now, as if the puzzle steadied him. It could be a vault reference," he said hesitantly. "Cabinet 3, Shelf 7, Item 12. But that's where the lady in blue was stored before tonight. It makes no sense to leave such a note." "Précisément," Poirot said. "It makes no sense, unless the note was meant to be found or left in error." He studied the symbols, ALVR, and these letters, Lady Charlotte's initials perhaps, or those of her lover, Philippe de Varenne, or something else entirely. Sir Reginald, leaning on his cane, frowned. "Monsieur Poirot, you're weaving a web from a single thread. This could be unrelated, a prank even." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Monsieur, Hercule Poirot does not believe in coincidences. This cipher, it is a thread, yes, but one that leads to the heart of the conspiracy." He slipped the paper into his pocket, alongside the gold thread from the pedestal. "We must decode it. Monsieur Withers, you will assist me in examining the vault records for this sequence." As Withers nodded, a sudden thud echoed from the upper gallery, followed by the sound of shattering glass. The guests froze, and Poirot's head snapped up. "Allons-y!" he barked, already moving toward the staircase, his small frame radiating authority. The group hurried upward, finding a broken vase, a delicate Sèvres piece, scattered across the floor. A window nearby stood ajar, its latch dangling, and the fog outside swirled like a living thing. Poirot knelt beside the shards, his fingers tracing a faint footprint in the dust, A woman's shoe, narrow and elegant. Mon Dieu, he murmured, the thief, or an accomplice, has been careless. This footprint, it is fresh, and this window, it was opened from the inside. Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. You mean someone still here, in the museum? Poirot's eyes narrowed. Oui, mademoiselle, or they were, moments ago. The cipher, the footprint, the broken vase. They are signs of haste, of panic. The thief expected no interference, but Hercule Poirot, he is not so easily dismissed. Colonel Drayton strode to the window, peering into the fog. If someone escaped, they're gone now. We're wasting time chasing shadows. Shadows? No, Poirot said sharply. Shadows leave traces, and traces lead to truth. We return to the vaults. The cipher points there, and I suspect it hides a secret more dangerous than a stolen miniature. As they descended, Poirot's mind churned. The cipher's numbers matched the miniature's storage, but the letters LVR eluded him. Were they initials, a code, or a misdirection? And the footprint, did it belong to Miss Langley, or another unseen player? The little grey cells hummed, sensing a conspiracy that stretched beyond the walls of Hartford House, into a past that refused to stay buried. Into a past that refused to stay buried. Chapter 7. The Heiress's Secret. The vaults beneath Hartford House were a labyrinth of whispers, their stone walls echoing with the weight of secrets long buried. Hercule Poirot stood in the small chamber where the lady in blue had been stored, his green eyes fixed on the open cabinet, its brass lock gleaming mockingly. The cipher 3712/LVR/***** burned in his mind, a puzzle yet to be solved. The guests, still reeling from the shattered vase and the open window above, had returned to the grand gallery, save for Lady Evelyn Wallis, who lingered at the chamber's entrance, her sapphire gown a stark contrast to the gloom. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said, turning to her with a polite bow, "you are not with the others. Is there something you wish to share with Hercule Poirot?" Lady Evelyn's lips parted, then closed, as if weighing her words. Her diamonds glittered faintly in the dim light, and her fingers clutched her evening bag with a tension Poirot noted. "You're a perceptive man, Monsieur Poirot," she said at last, her voice low and measured. I haven't been entirely forthcoming. There's something you should know about the miniature." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of keen interest. "Vraiment? Speak, s'il vous plaît." "The truth, it is like a rare painting, best revealed in the light." She glanced over her shoulder, ensuring they were alone, then stepped closer. "The miniature, the lady in blue, it's more than a scandalous relic. My late husband, Lord Henry Wallis, told me it was personal to our family. He said it held a clue to a secret trust, established by Lady Charlotte Wallis after her disgrace, a trust meant to protect something or someone." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A trust? Mon Dieu, this is most intriguing. And what, pray, does this trust protect?" Lady Evelyn hesitated, her gaze flickering to the cabinet. "He didn't say. Only that the miniature's frame was key, those Persian sapphires Miss Langley mentioned. Henry believed they were arranged in a pattern, a code of sorts, known only to a few Wallises. He was obsessed with it before his death last year." Poirot steepled his fingers, his mind racing. "Et voilà, a code within a code. The cipher we found, LVR. Perhaps it relates to this trust. But why, mademoiselle, do you tell me this now?" Her eyes met his, a mix of defiance and fear. "Because I don't trust the others, Monsieur Poirot. Sir Reginald pushes too hard to display the collection's treasures, as if he's hiding something. Withers is a nervous wreck, and Colonel Drayton, his coldness unnerves me. As for Hammond, He's too eager to profit from art. I thought you should know the stakes." Poirot studied her, noting the slight tremor in her voice, the way her fingers tightened on her bag. "Merci, Lady Evelyn, for your candor. But I wonder, do you know more than you say? Your husband's obsession, it suggests a deeper connection to this miniature. Were you aware of its rediscovery before tonight?" She stiffened, her lips thinning. "I knew it was found, yes. Sir Reginald informed me last week, as a courtesy to the family, but I swear I had no part in its theft." "Bien sûr," Poirot said, his tone soothing yet probing. "Yet you were near the pedestal when it vanished. And your gown. It is exquisite, but its threads, they are not gold, no?" He produced the gold thread from his pocket, holding it up. Her eyes widened, but she shook her head. "That's not mine," she said quickly. "I don't know where it came from." Poirot nodded, tucking the thread away. "D'accord. But the little grey cells, they wonder. Why does a lady of your poise linger in a vault, alone, with a detective? Perhaps you seek to guide the investigation, or to divert it." Lady Evelyn's laugh was sharp, almost brittle. "You suspect everyone, don't you, Monsieur Poirot?" "Oui," he replied, his smile enigmatic. "It is my profession to suspect, until the truth reveals itself." A sudden clatter from the staircase interrupted them. Sir Reginald appeared, his face flushed. "Monsieur Poirot, the footman has returned. Miss Langley, she's not at her lodgings. Her landlady says she hasn't been seen since this afternoon." Poirot's expression darkened. "Mon Dieu, the conservator's absence grows more suspicious. And the vault records, Monsieur Withers? Have you found anything tied to the cipher?" Withers, who had been hovering near a cabinet, shook his head. "Nothing yet. The sequence 3 to 7 to 12 points only to the miniature's storage. But I'll keep looking." Poirot turned back to Lady Evelyn. "Mademoiselle, your secret trust, it suggests a motive for theft. If the sapphires hold a code, the thief may seek more than wealth. We must return to the gallery. The others, they may reveal more than they intend." As they ascended, Poirot's mind churned. Lady Evelyn's revelation added a layer to the mystery, a trust, a coded frame, a family secret. Yet her candor felt calculated, as if she were painting a picture for him to admire, but not to trust. The gold thread, the cipher, the missing Miss Langley, all pointed to a conspiracy that grew more dangerous with each step. Above, the portraits of the Wallace ancestors seemed to watch, their silence louder than ever. Chapter 8. A midnight intrusion. The grand gallery of Hartford House was cloaked in shadows. The chandeliers dimmed to a faint glow as midnight approached. The guests, Lady Evelyn Wallace, Colonel Marcus Drayton, Mr. Percival Hammond, and Mr. Clarence Withers, remained under Poirot's watchful eye, their nerves frayed by the theft of the lady in blue and the absence of Miss Langley. Sir Reginald Blake had retreated to his office to telephone the police, though Poirot had insisted on delaying their involvement until he could unravel the cipher's meaning. Hercule Poirot stood by a Watteau painting, his small frame alert, his green eyes scanning the room like a hawk's. "Mes amis," Poirot said, his voice cutting through the tense silence, "we are not alone in this museum. The thief, or an accomplice, lingers, and Hercule Poirot will not be outwitted by shadows." Colonel Drayton snorted, his military coat stiff with disdain. "You're chasing ghosts, Poirot. The miniature's gone, and so is the thief. We're wasting time." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Non, Colonel. The little grey cells, they sense movement where you see stillness. The broken vase, the open window, the footprint, they are not accidents. They are signs of a plan interrupted." Before Drayton could retort, A faint creak echoed from the east wing, where the collection's prized porcelain was displayed. Poirot's head snapped toward the sound, his hand gesturing for silence. "Écoutez," he whispered, "the thief returns, perhaps, for another prize." Without waiting for a response, Poirot moved swiftly, his polished shoes silent on the parquet floor. The guests followed reluctantly, their footsteps a soft chorus in the darkened gallery. Lady Evelyn's gown rustled faintly, and Hammond's heavy breathing betrayed his unease. Withers clutched his notebook, while Drayton's hand hovered near his coat pocket as if expecting trouble. The east wing was a treasure trove of Sèvres porcelain and gilded bronzes, their delicate forms glinting in the moonlight that filtered through high windows. Poirot paused, his gaze fixed on a display case containing a rare Sèvres vase, its intricate blue and gold design reminiscent of the stolen miniature's frame. A shadow flickered near the case, and a soft click, like a lock being tested, cut through the silence. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot hissed, darting forward. "The thief is bold!" He reached the case just as a cloaked figure, face obscured by a scarf, spun toward him. The figure held a small tool, a lockpick gleaming faintly. Before they could flee, Poirot seized a nearby bronze candelabrum and thrust it forward, blocking their path. "Arrêtez!" he commanded. "Hercule Poirot demands to know your purpose." The figure hesitated, then bolted toward a side door, but Poirot was quicker than his size suggested. He lunged, grabbing the edge of the cloak. It tore free, revealing a glimpse of a dark glove and a slender wrist, before the intruder slipped through the door into a service corridor. Poirot pursued, but the sound of a bolt sliding shut told him the chase was over for now. Breathing steadily, Poirot returned to the display case, where the lock showed faint scratches but remained intact. "A second theft prevented," he said, turning to the guests who had caught up, their faces pale. "But the intention? It reveals much." Lady Evelyn's eyes were wide. "You mean they came for the vase? But why?" Poirot held up the torn piece of cloak, a dark wool with a single gold thread caught in its weave, identical to the one he'd found near the pedestal. "Précisément, mademoiselle. The thief seeks more than the miniature. This vase, its design, it matches the frame of the lady in blue. Perhaps it too holds a secret." Hammond mopped his brow, his voice unsteady. "Another cipher? This is madness, Poirot. Who would risk so much for porcelain?" "Someone who knows its value," Poirot replied, his gaze shifting to Withers. "Monsieur Withers, this vase, was it catalogued with the miniature? Did Miss Langley examine it as well?" Withers stammered, his spectacles fogging. Yes, she studied it last week. Said its glaze was unusual, possibly concealing an inscription. But I thought nothing of it." Colonel Drayton's voice was cold. "Your conservator seems to know a great deal, Withers. Convenient that she's vanished." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Oui, Colonel. Miss Langley's absence is no coincidence, but this intruder, slender, swift, perhaps a woman. The footprint from the upper gallery, it matches." He held up the cloak fragment. "And this thread, it links the two crimes. The thief is desperate, and desperation, it breeds mistakes." Sir Reginald burst into the wing, his face flushed. "Monsieur Poirot, the police are on their way, but there's news. Miss Langley's landlady says she saw her leave with a suitcase this evening, hours before the viewing." Poirot's expression darkened. "Mon Dieu, the net tightens, yet the prey slips through. We must search this corridor, and we must decode the cipher. The vase, the miniature, the trust Lady Evelyn spoke of, they are pieces of a puzzle that grows more dangerous by the hour." As the guests exchanged uneasy glances, Poirot's little grey cells hummed. The intruder's boldness, the matching gold threads, the cryptic LVR, all pointed to a conspiracy rooted in the past, with stakes far greater than a stolen painting. The clock struck midnight, its chime a warning that time was running out. Chapter 9. The Artist's Legacy. The east wing of Hartford House, still reverberating with the echo of the thwarted intrusion, was now a stage for Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit of truth. The Sèvres vase, its blue and gold glaze untouched thanks to his intervention, stood as a silent witness to the night's chaos. The guests, Lady Evelyn Wallace, Colonel Marcus Drayton, Mr. Percival Hammond, and Mr. Clarence Withers, huddled near the display case, their faces a mix of fear and fascination. Sir Reginald, Blake, clutching his cane, had just relayed the troubling news of Miss Langley's disappearance with a suitcase, and the air was thick with suspicion. Poirot held the torn cloak fragment, its gold thread glinting in the moonlight. "Mes amis," he said, his voice calm but commanding, "the thief's boldness betrays a purpose beyond mere greed. This vase, like the lady in blue, holds a secret, and I suspect it is tied to the artist himself, Jean-Etienne Lyotard. Monsieur Withers, what do you know of his work for the Wallace family?" Withers, his spectacles askew, blinked rapidly. Lyotard. He was a Swiss painter, renowned for his miniatures and portraits in the 18th century. His work for Lady Charlotte Wallace was unusual. He was not a regular commissioned artist for the family, but the lady in blue was a private commission, rumoured to be a token of her affair with Philippe de Varenne. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Précisément, a private commission steeped in scandal. But tell me, was there more to Lyotard's involvement? Did he leave other works, perhaps hidden, like the miniature? Withers hesitated, then nodded. There's a record, barely mentioned in the archives. Lyotard created a second piece for Lady Charlotte, a companion to the miniature. A small enamel plaque, said to depict a coded map, concealed in a porcelain frame. It was never catalogued properly, and I thought it lost until Miss Langley mentioned it last month. Lady Evelyn's voice was sharp. A coded map, Monsieur Withers. This sounds like a fairy tale. My family would have known of such a thing. Mademoiselle, Poirot interjected, his tone mild but piercing. Your family, it seems, excels at keeping secrets. This plaque, where is it now? Withers wrung his hands. I don't know. Miss Langley said she found a reference to it in an old ledger, but the plaque itself wasn't in the vaults. She was studying the Sèvres vase, believing its glaze might conceal a similar technique, an inscription or design baked into the porcelain. Colonel Drayton's eyes narrowed. A map to what, Withers? Treasure? Secrets? This is nonsense. Non, Colonel, Poirot said, his moustache twitching. It is not nonsense. It is motive. If this plaque exists, and if it connects to the miniature sapphires in the cipher 3712/LVR, then we are dealing with a conspiracy that reaches into the past. A map, perhaps, to Lady Charlotte's trust, as Lady Evelyn mentioned. Mr. Hammond, his jovial facade crumbling, mopped his brow. A map in porcelain? That's a stretch, Poirot. Sounds like something a collector like me would kill to own, but, well, not literally, of course. Poirot's gaze flicked to Hammond, noting the nervous laugh. Bien sûr, Monsieur Hammond, but collectors, they are not always innocent. Let us examine this vase more closely. He approached the Sèvres vase, its intricate design shimmering under the dim light. Running his fingers along its surface, he detected a faint irregularity. a series of raised lines beneath the glaze, invisible to the untrained eye. "Aha!" he exclaimed softly. "The glaze, it hides a pattern, a grid perhaps, or a sequence. Miss Langley was right to study it." Sir Reginald frowned, stepping closer. "You mean to say the vase itself is part of this code?" "Oui," Poirot replied. "And the intruder tonight, they sought it, knowing its value. The gold thread, the footprint, the cipher, all point to someone with intimate knowledge of the collection. Someone who knew of Lyotard's hidden work." Lady Evelyn's voice was low, almost a whisper. "You think Miss Langley stole the miniature and came back for the vase?" Poirot turned to her, his expression unreadable. "It is possible, mademoiselle, but I wonder. Your husband's obsession with the miniature's frame, did he ever speak of this plaque, or of Lyotard's techniques?" Her eyes flickered, but she shook her head. "Number Henry only mentioned the trust, nothing about a plaque or a map." Poirot nodded, though his little grey cells hummed with doubt. "D'accord. We must find this plaque, and we must find Miss Langley. Her disappearance, it is no coincidence. Monsieur Withers, you will search the ledgers for any trace of this enamel plaque. The rest of you, remain here. The police will arrive soon, but Hercule Poirot does not wait for others to solve his mysteries." As Withers scurried to the archives, Poirot's gaze lingered on the vase. The lines beneath the glaze formed a faint grid, numbers perhaps, or coordinates. The ciphers LVR echoed in his mind, intertwining with Lady Charlotte's scandal, Lyotard's artistry, and a trust that seemed to draw danger like moths to a flame. The artist's legacy was no mere footnote. It was a key to a conspiracy that threatened to unravel more than the Wallace collection. Chapter 10. The False Alibi. The east wing of Hartford House was steeped in a restless quiet, the moonlight casting long shadows across the Sevres porcelain and gilded bronzes. Hercule Poirot stood before the vase that had nearly been stolen, its hidden grid of lines beneath the glaze, a silent testament to the conspiracy unfolding. The guests, Lady Evelyn Wallace, Colonel Marcus Drayton, Mr. Percival Hammond, and Mr. Clarence Withers, stood in a tense knot, their faces etched with suspicion, as the distant wail of a police siren pierced the fog outside. Sir Reginald Blake paced near the door, awaiting the authorities, while Poirot's green eyes gleamed with purpose. "Mes amis," Poirot said, his voice cutting through the heavy air. "The thief grows bold, but also careless. The gold thread, the cipher, the footprint, they are threads in a tapestry of deception. And now we unravel a key thread, the alibi of one among you." Colonel Drayton stiffened, his military coat taut across his shoulders. "What are you implying, Poirot?" "My movements were clear. I was with Hammond by the porcelain when the miniature vanished." "Précisément," Poirot said, his moustache twitching. "You claim you were with Monsieur Hammond, discussing Sèvres, yet your eyes, Colonel, they were fixed on the staircase to the upper gallery. I observed this. And when the vase was nearly taken, you were quick to dismiss the intruder's presence. Why so certain, mon ami?" Drayton's jaw tightened, but he held Poirot's gaze. A soldier's instinct, nothing more. "I saw no one leave, so the thief must have escaped earlier." Poirot's smile was thin, almost predatory. "Vraiment. Then let us test this instinct. Monsieur Hammond, you corroborate the Colonel's story, oui? You were together, admiring porcelain." Hammond, his face flushed, mopped his brow with his silk handkerchief. "Well, yes, of course. We were chatting about the Sèvres. Lovely pieces, really. I didn't notice anything odd until Withers shouted about the miniature." Poirot stepped closer, his voice soft but unyielding. Curieux, Monsieur Hammond. You are a collector, yet you did not notice the Colonel's absence for a brief moment. I recall you turning to admire a Fragonard alone, while the Colonel moved toward the staircase. A small gap, perhaps, but enough for a swift hand to act. Hammond's eyes widened, his handkerchief pausing mid-dab. I might have been distracted. It was only a moment. A moment, Poirot repeated, is all a thief needs. And you, Colonel Drayton, your coat. It is heavy, suitable for concealing tools, or perhaps a miniature. May I inspect it? Drayton's hand twitched toward his pocket, a gesture Poirot noted. This is absurd, he snapped. I'm no thief. Search me if you must, but you'll find nothing. Poirot raised a hand, his tone soothing yet firm. Pas nécessaire for now, but let us examine another detail. The cipher, 3712/LVR. It points to the miniature storage, yet you, Colonel, suggested it was a distraction. How did you know of the cipher's existence before I revealed it to all? The room fell silent, the guests exchanging uneasy glances. Drayton's face remained impassive, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. You mentioned it earlier, Poirot. I was merely responding. No, Poirot said sharply. I spoke of a note, not its contents, until after your comment. You knew of LVR, Colonel. How? Lady Evelyn interjected, her voice sharp. Monsieur Poirot, are you accusing the Colonel of being in league with the thief? He's a decorated officer. Mademoiselle, Poirot replied, decorations do not make one innocent. The Colonel's alibi falters, and his knowledge of the cipher suggests a connection, perhaps to Miss Langley, or to another who knows the collection's secrets. Withers, clutching his notebook, stammered, But the cipher was found after the theft. How could anyone know it unless they left it? Précisément, Poirot said, and the gold thread in the Colonel's coat pocket. It matches the one from the pedestal and the cloak. A small detail, but Hercule Poirot misses nothing. He produced the thread, holding it up to the light. Drayton's hand moved instinctively to his pocket, then froze. I don't know how that got there, Drayton said, his voice low and dangerous. Someone's framing me. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Peut-être. But the little grey cells, they see a pattern. You were near the staircase when the miniature vanished. You dismissed the intruder's presence tonight, and you knew of the cipher. Tell me, Colonel, do you have ties to Philippe de Varennes' descendants, or to the trust Lady Evelyn mentioned? Drayton's silence was deafening, his gaze locked on Poirot. Hammond shifted uncomfortably, while Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened on her evening bag. Sir Reginald, returning from the door, frowned. Monsieur Poirot, the police are here. Shall we turn this over to them? No, Poirot said firmly. The police, they will trample the delicate threads of this mystery. We are close, mes amis. The Colonel's alibi is false, but he is not alone. An alliance exists, perhaps with Miss Langley, perhaps with another. The Sèvres vase, the miniature, the plaque, they are keys to a secret worth stealing for. As the police's footsteps echoed in the hall, Poirot's mind raced. Drayton's lie was a crack in the facade, revealing a web of deception that tied the guests to the past. The cipher's LVR, the gold threads, the hidden map, all pointed to a conspiracy that was far from over. The night was young, and the truth was closer than ever. Chapter 11. The Gathering Storm. The Grand Gallery of Hartford House was a crucible of tension, its opulent walls and glittering chandeliers now a backdrop to an impending reckoning. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his small, fastidious figure radiating authority as he faced the assembled guests. Lady Evelyn Wallace, her sapphire gown dimmed by the late hour. Colonel Marcus Drayton, his military bearing strained. Mr. Percival Hammond, his handkerchief damp with nervous sweat, and Mr. Clarence Withers, clutching his notebook like a lifeline. Sir Reginald Blake leaned on his cane, his face a mask of weary indignation, while the distant tread of police officers in the lower halls signalled their imminent arrival. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "the hour grows late, but the truth, it does not sleep. The theft of the lady in blue, the attempted theft of the Sèvres vase, the cipher 3712/LVR, the gold threads, the missing Miss Langley, all are threads in a tapestry of deception. Tonight, Hercule Poirot will weave them together." Colonel Drayton's eyes narrowed, his voice cold. "Get on with it, Poirot. Your theatrics are wearing thin." Poirot's moustache twitched, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Patience, Colonel. The little grey cells, they work methodically. Let us review. The miniature, painted by Jean-Etienne Lyotard, hides a secret tied to Lady Charlotte Wallace's scandal. A trust, perhaps a map, encoded in its sapphire frame. The Sèvres vase, with its hidden grid, suggests a companion piece, an enamel plaque. The cipher points to the miniature's storage, yet its letters, LVR, remain a mystery. And the gold threads, found at the pedestal and in the intruder's cloak, link the crimes to one among us. Lady Evelyn's fingers tightened on her evening bag. "You're suggesting one of us is the thief? That's preposterous, Monsieur Poirot." "No, mademoiselle," Poirot said, his gaze piercing. "It is inevitable. The thief knew the miniature's history, the vase's secret, and the cipher's meaning. They moved with precision, yet left traces, the footprint, the torn cloak, the note, and you, Colonel Drayton, your alibi falters. You knew of the cipher before it was revealed, and a gold thread was found in your pocket." Drayton's hand clenched into a fist. "I told you, I'm being framed. I had no part in this." Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. "Peut-être, but let us consider another. Monsieur Withers, your nervousness, it betrays more than fear. You knew of the plaque's existence, yet failed to mention it until pressed. And Miss Langley, your conservator, she vanishes with a suitcase after studying the vase and miniature. Were you her confidant or her accomplice?" Withers gasped, his spectacles slipping. I swear I'm no thief. Miss Langley was acting strangely, yes, but I thought it was just her obsession with Lyotard's work." Sir Reginald interjected, his voice sharp. "Monsieur Poirot, you're casting aspersions without proof. The police are here. Let them handle this." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "No, Monsieur Blake. The police, they will arrest the wrong person if we do not act. The truth lies in the cipher. LVRI. Propose it is not initials, but a code for livre, the French word for book. The numbers, 3712, point to a ledger in the vaults, page 3, line 7, entry 12. Monsieur Withers, you will fetch this ledger at once." Withers, trembling, scurried to the vault, returning moments later with a dusty tome. Poirot opened it to the specified page, his finger tracing the lines. "Aha! Entry 12 records a donation by Lady Charlotte, a book bound in blue leather, gifted to the Wallace family in 1763. It was stored with the miniature, yet it is missing. This book, it holds the key to the trust, the map, the secret." Hammond's voice was unsteady. "A book? You mean this whole affair is about some old tome?" "Oui," Poirot said. "A book that completes the cipher, perhaps hidden by the thief or by Miss Langley. But there is more. The gold thread, it matches none of your garments, yet it appears in every crime. I suspect it belongs to one who moves unseen, Perhaps a servant, or—" He paused, his gaze settling on Lady Evelyn. "Or someone who conceals their true role." Lady Evelyn's face paled, but she held his gaze. "You suspect me, Monsieur Poirot. I've told you all I know." "Vraiment?" Poirot said softly. "Then why, mademoiselle, does your evening bag contain a scrap of paper with the same watermark as the cipher?" He stepped forward, his hand outstretched. "S'il vous plaît, show me." The room froze, all eyes on Lady Evelyn. Her hand trembled as she opened her bag, revealing a folded note. Poirot took it, unfolding it to reveal a single word: Varenne. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "the name of Lady Charlotte's lover. The storm gathers, mes amis, and the truth is near." As the police's footsteps grew louder, Poirot's little grey cells hummed. The ledger, the book, the threads, the name, all converged on a conspiracy that was about to break. The final confrontation loomed, and Hercule Poirot was ready. Chapter 12. The Final Brushstroke. The grand gallery of Hartford House was a stage set for revelation, its opulent walls and flickering chandeliers bearing witness to the gathering storm. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his small, fastidious figure commanding the room. As the guests, Lady Evelyn Wallace, Colonel Marcus Drayton, Mr. Percival Hammond, and Mr. Clarence Withers, faced him, their expressions a mix of dread and anticipation. Sir Reginald Blake gripped his cane, his face taut, while the muffled voices of approaching police officers echoed from the lower halls. The note in Poirot's hand, bearing the word Varenne, seemed to pulse with the weight of centuries. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "the theft of the lady in blue is no mere crime of greed. It is a thread in a tapestry woven by Lady Charlotte Wallace, Philippe de Varenne, and a secret that has endured since the 7 Years' War. Tonight, Hercule Poirot will reveal the thief, the motive, and the truth hidden in the shadows of the Wallace collection." Colonel Drayton's voice was sharp. "Enough theatrics, Poirot. Name the thief, and be done with it." Poirot's moustache twitched, his green eyes gleaming. "Patience, Colonel. The little grey cells, they work methodically. Let us unravel the clues. The gold thread, found at the pedestal, and the intruder's cloak. The cipher, 3712, LVR, pointing to a ledger and a book. The Sèvres vase, with its hidden grid. And this note, bearing the name Varenne. All led to a trust, a map, and a conspiracy." He turned to Lady Evelyn, holding up the note. "Mademoiselle, you carried this, yet claim ignorance of its meaning. Why?" Lady Evelyn's lips trembled, but her voice was steady. "I found it in my husband's papers after his death. I thought it might relate to the trust, but I didn't know its significance until tonight." Poirot nodded, his gaze shifting to Withers. "Monsieur Withers, you spoke of an enamel plaque, a companion to the miniature, crafted by Jean-Etienne Lyotard. You claimed it was lost, yet Miss Langley's studies suggested otherwise. Where is she now?" Withers paled, his spectacles slipping. I don't know. She vanished, as I told you." "Vraiment?" Poirot said, his tone cutting. "Then let us consider the ledger. Page 3, line 7, entry 12, a blue leather book, donated by Lady Charlotte, missing from the vaults. I propose it contains the map to her trust, encoded in the miniature's sapphires and the vase's glaze. But who took it?" He paced, his polished shoes clicking softly. "The gold thread. It does not match your garments, yet it appears at every crime. The footprint, the cloak, the lockpick, all suggest a woman swift and skilled. Miss Langley, perhaps, or another, hidden among us." Sir Reginald bristled. "Monsieur Poirot, you've accused everyone but proven nothing. The police are here. Let them search for Langley." Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. "No, Monsieur Blake. The police will find no thief tonight, for the thief is here." He turned to Lady Evelyn. "Mademoiselle, you are not what you seem. You are not a Wallis by marriage, but by blood. A direct descendant of Lady Charlotte, are you not?" The room gasped. Lady Evelyn's face strained of colour, her diamonds glinting as she swayed. How did you know?" Poirot's smile was triumphant. "The note, Valenne. It was not your husband's, but yours, passed down through your family. The trust, it is yours to claim, a fortune hidden by Lady Charlotte, protected by a map in the enamel plaque. You orchestrated the theft, using Miss Langley as your pawn." Lady Evelyn's voice broke. "I had to. The trust is my birthright, but the Wallises buried it. The miniatures sapphires, the vases grid, they point to a vault in Paris, where Charlotte hid her wealth after de Varennes' betrayal. I hired Langley to decode them, but she betrayed me, stole the miniature for herself." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Oui, and the book? You took it from the vaults, no?" She nodded, tears falling. "It's in my bag. I needed it to complete the map." Poirot turned to the group, producing the blue leather book from Lady Evelyn's bag, its pages revealing a delicate diagram of sapphires and lines. "Voila, the map. But there is more. The ciphers LVR. It is not livre, but la vérité royale, the royal truth. Lady Charlotte's lover, Philippe de Varennes, was no mere diplomat. He was a Bourbon agent, hiding a secret that could have shaken the British crown. A claim to a lost royal relic smuggled to France." Hammond gasped. "A royal relic? That's madness." "No," Poirot said. "It is history. Charlotte hid the truth in her art, and her descendant, Lady Evelyn, sought to reclaim it. Colonel Drayton, you suspected her, oui? Your military contacts traced the de Varennes line, and you planted the gold thread to expose her." Drayton nodded grimly. "I knew she was after something bigger than art." Poirot clapped his hands. "Et voilà! The conspiracy is revealed. Lady Evelyn, you are the thief, but Miss Langley, she is the traitor, fled with the miniature. The police will find her, and the trust will be yours, mademoiselle, though not without consequence." As the police entered, Lady Evelyn sank into a chair, the book clutched to her chest. Poirot bowed slightly, his work complete. The little grey cells, they triumph. The Wallis collection is safe, and the truth shines like a masterpiece.